The thing that I have noticed that gets in the way of most people being able to clearly communicate their boundaries, know their boundaries, or even want to do this is a lot of misconceptions about what boundaries are. A lot of us have a lot of fears and false beliefs around what boundaries mean and how they impact our life. So, in this first video module, what I want to do is just kind of set the stage clear about what boundaries actually are so that we can get more on board with bringing them actively into our life. So before we go into the myths, I actually want to share a definition of boundaries that a teacher of mine mentioned to me recently that I love. She said, a boundary is something that helps us keep our heart open and connected. So a boundary is some type of request we make or something we say no to or a truth that we speak that helps us to keep our heart open and connected in the moment. What a beautiful thing. What a beautiful way to relate to boundaries. And as we move through the course of this video module series, I want to invite you to hold that idea in your heart and see how it can take more firm root in your belief systems. So the first myth of boundaries that seems to be the biggest one is the belief that setting clear boundaries pushes love and intimacy away. Now, let me start by saying when you start embodying your boundaries and communicating them in your life, there probably will be some people who fall away, especially if this is relatively new work for you. Because once you start taking care of yourself, then all of the ways that we were kind of overgiving our energy or our power, and the people who got really used to that dynamic of you just kind of overgiving, they might not like it when you start setting your boundaries and really owning and taking care of your energy. And if they're not willing to engage in a more empowered relationship dynamic with you, the relationship might not be truly resonant anymore. And that's one of the things that we really need to be willing to be with in order to start doing this work. So what I want to invite is that boundaries, when embodied and communicated in our lives, actually invite more intimacy and more love into our lives because we're making it really clear to people how they can most genuinely love us. Let that one sink in for a moment. So the second myth I want to speak to is the fear that if I set boundaries, it means that I'm not a kind or loving person. And this can be such a big fear that comes up because we've been so trained to think that, oh, to receive love, we need to be a good boy and a good girl. You know, we need to just overgive. And there's a fear that if we don't overgive, that we'll lose love. So, oh, if I say no, it means that I'm a mean person, that I'm a bitch or whatever it is. There can be this fear. But what I want to invite is that us getting really clear on what our boundaries are is actually what sets the stage for us to be able to more fully open our heart. Because we're sending the message to our soul, to our being that, hey, like, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to set really clear boundaries around what's okay and not okay for me in my life. So that way I can feel safe to open my heart and really be present and loving in my life. Okay, third belief that I want to debunk here is that boundaries always stay the same. That is not true. Boundaries are actually ever evolving things. And as we grow and evolve, what used to be a clear no might actually be a yes. And this is a big thing because often when we don't have any boundaries for a long period of time, or we just didn't even know what they were, it's very important to have clear, succinct boundaries that we just stick to no matter what, as a way to cultivate self-trust within ourselves. However, as we grow and cultivate more trust within ourselves, the boundaries that once served us, if we're just attached to them blindly, can actually block us from opening up to more love, more joy, and more fulfillment. And I'm curious if you can think to a time in your life where a boundary at one point has served you, but you stayed attached to it beyond once it was actually something supportive to you. So those are the three boundary myths that I think are really important to have awareness about. And now I want to speak to two common challenges that people experience when it comes to setting boundaries in their life. And the first is actually knowing what our boundaries are. You know, this is a conversation that I experience in the appetite course that I teach, where women will just say, I don't even know what my boundaries are. I don't know what my yes is. I don't know what my no is. I don't know what they feel like. And this is such a common issue. And we're going to go into why that is in a moment. So if this is one of your challenges, know that you're not alone here. And then the second one is you might actually know what your boundaries are. You might know what your yes and your no is. But when it comes to actually being able to communicate them in the moment, in the heat of the moment, whether you're in an argument or perhaps you're in a passionate embrace or lovemaking or in communication with someone in your life, when it actually comes time to speaking the truth, you don't know how to find your words. So, these myths and truths that I've spoken to and these common challenges that we experience with boundaries all really come down to one thing. In order to truly bring our boundaries into our life, it is essential that we are in our bodies, that we are embodied, that we are connected to our heart, to our belly, and to our sexuality, really feeling, am I a yes to this? Am I a no to this? We live in a culture that's very disconnected from our bodies, namely because we live in a consumer-based economy that's told us that we need to buy things, we need to diet, we need to change who we are in order to be lovable. So there can be this story that emerges that it's not okay for me to be in my body until I'm perfect. It's not okay for me to be in my body until I've lost the weight or until I'm more successful. And the challenge here is that when that's the story that we're living by, we wind up getting caught up in our heads, living usually in regret from the past or fear of the future. And that is not a very empowered place to set our boundaries from. One, because we can't actually feel what our yes and no is in the moment. And two, because we're not actually operating based on what's happening here right now. But instead, the shame of past experiences or the fear of what might happen in the future. So the first thing I am going to really invite is the exploration of what would it take for you to come down into your body. So we're going to move more into this inquiry in later modules, but first I have two journaling questions for you that are really going to take the heart of what we talked about in this video module and bring it into your body. So the first question that I have for you is, what are your beliefs about boundaries? What do you believe that they are? What are the past experiences you've had about them that really inform what you believe that they are today? And the second question is, what fears or anxieties arise for you, or what stories arise that get in the way of you feeling able to confidently speak your boundaries when you most need them? So simplifying that question, what fears do you have about communicating your boundaries? Take some time to write these down before you move on to the next video, and I will see you there. Bye.